There's this strange in-between phase no one warns you about. The moment where your old life still looks the same, but somehow it doesn't feel the same anymore. You wake up, do the same routine, talk to the same people, yet it's like the colors have shifted a little. Something is off, or maybe something is waking up. You start noticing little coincidences that don't make logical sense. The song that answers your thought, the message you were just thinking about, the way strangers suddenly mirror the emotion you were holding a few seconds before. And then you wonder, am I imagining this, or is my reality responding to me? That's usually the first sign that your frequency is changing, because when your energy starts to recalibrate, the external world begins to echo it back, not as a metaphor but as a mirror. It's subtle at first. You can't prove it, but you can feel it. The body becomes your instrument, and life starts tuning itself through you. Most people miss it because they expect change to arrive as a big event. But frequency shifts begin microscopically, in perception, in small emotional upgrades, in how your nervous system reacts to what once triggered you. Reality doesn't flip overnight. It ripples. You become the cause that begins to rewrite the effect. And if you're in that space where you're questioning everything, not out of fear, but out of curiosity, you're probably already moving frequencies. You just haven't learned to read the language yet. So in this story, I'll show you the 3 unmistakable signs that your vibration is shifting, and the mechanics behind why your world has started to rearrange itself around you. Because once you recognize these signals, you stop doubting your evolution and start participating in it. Think of reality like a giant field of radio stations, all playing at once. Each station broadcasts a different emotional tone: fear, peace, creativity, joy, clarity. You don't hear all of them at the same time. You only experience the one you're tuned to. When your frequency starts changing, you're not becoming a better person. You're simply tuning into a new station. The sounds that once made sense begin to distort, and static fills the air as your system moves between channels. That's why transition feels confusing.
You're in between songs, no longer fully resonant with the old frequency, not yet stabilized in the new one. From a physics standpoint, your body is an electrical field, a moving orchestra of charged particles. Your emotions are frequency outputs. Your thoughts are waveforms, and your attention acts as the tuner. Where attention goes, energy literally synchronizes. When you hold a state, not just a thought, but a felt state, long enough, your electromagnetic field organizes around it. Then reality starts broadcasting that same frequency back through circumstances, people, and opportunities. That's the observer effect in action. Not a mystical idea, but a direct consequence of resonance. You observe, and through that observation, you collapse one potential out of infinite probabilities into physical form. Every moment you're selecting which version of the song, or the timeline, plays through your speakers. Here's where most people get tripped up. They think the outer world has to change first. They stare at the radio, waiting for the song to sound different, without realizing their hand is still holding the old dial. But life mirrors the station you're currently broadcasting. Your nervous system is the tuner, and your emotional coherence is the clarity of the signal. So when your frequency begins to change, it won't be smooth at first. Static increases, people drift, old interests dissolve. You might even feel like something is wrong, but what's actually happening is recalibration. The universe isn't testing you, it's matching you. And every mismatch is feedback, showing you what signal you're still transmitting. The first signal of frequency change isn't external success. It's the subtle discomfort of no longer fitting inside your old frequency. That static you feel? That's your system realigning, your energy searching for a clearer station. Because once you find it, everything starts to play in tune. There's a myth that ruins more quantum shifts than fear ever could. The idea that feeling off means you're doing it wrong. You've probably heard it. Stay positive, keep your vibration high, don't think negative thoughts. It sounds empowering until you're actually in the process of change. Because when your frequency begins to elevate, it naturally pushes old patterns to the surface. Your body detoxes emotion like it's clearing static from the line. And in that flush, you might feel confusion, doubt, fatigue, even sadness. That's not regression. That's signal purification. Let's make it real. Imagine this. You're waiting for a text from someone who used to trigger your insecurities. You're doing the work, staying calm, reminding yourself you're detached. But hours pass. Silence. Suddenly, your mind starts spinning the same old stories. They don't care. I messed up. I'm back at square one. It feels like you've lost all progress. But look closer.
What's actually happening is that your system is retesting the old station. It's asking, do we still broadcast from this fear frequency? When you breathe, observe, and stay grounded in presence instead of panic, that's when the frequency truly shifts. You've just passed the vibrational test, because this time, you didn't let the old pattern set the tone. You felt the static but didn't tune back. That's the hidden truth about emotional triggers. They're not setbacks. They're invitations. Moments when the old signal tries to call you back, and you get to decide whether to answer. The myth of perfect positivity keeps you fighting the static instead of learning to read it. True coherence isn't the absence of noise. It's the ability to stay tuned despite it. The quantum field doesn't respond to the surface emotion. It responds to your relationship with it. If you can feel sadness without collapsing into it, you're already vibrating at a higher bandwidth. That's self-regulation. That's embodied frequency. And the moment you start seeing triggers as data, not danger, everything transforms. Life stops feeling like an unpredictable storm and starts feeling like a conversation with intelligence itself. You no longer ask, why is this happening to me? You ask, what frequency is this reflecting back? That single shift in awareness is the bridge from victimhood to vibration. And the deeper secret hiding behind it, the one that will change how you read every emotion from now on, is what we're about to open next. Because once you understand the link between your nervous system and your signal, you'll finally see why safety isn't comfort. It's the foundation of frequency. Your frequency doesn't live in your thoughts. It lives in your body. You can repeat affirmations all day, but if your nervous system is in defense mode, your field keeps broadcasting survival. That's why so many people say, I've been manifesting for months, and nothing changes. They're speaking new words, but their body is still tuned to danger. The nervous system is the bridge between energy and experience. It decides whether you're safe enough to receive or too threatened to expand. Every cell listens to that signal. When your body senses threat, it contracts. Your energy pulls inward, scanning for danger, unable to hold a coherent field. That contraction jams the radio dial, no matter how high vibe your thoughts sound. But when the body feels safe, coherence forms naturally. The heart and brain start syncing. Your electromagnetic field stabilizes, and suddenly life mirrors clarity back to you. That's why the first step in frequency mastery isn't thinking differently, it's breathing differently. Because breath tells your body, we are safe to open. Try this with me, a 45-second reset. Exhale completely first, emptying the noise. Then inhale slowly through your nose for 4 counts, feeling your ribs expand sideways. Hold for a brief moment. Exhale through your mouth twice as long, soft, audible, as if releasing static from your chest. Do it 3 times. Notice how your perception widens. That widening is coherence. In that state, your thoughts stop chasing control. You begin to observe without urgency, and that's where your broadcast stabilizes. The universe doesn't need your tension. It needs your transmission. And transmission happens through relaxation, not force. Think of your nervous system as the tuner knob itself. Every time you soothe your body, you sharpen your frequency. Every time you fight your sensations, you distort it. Safety is not a luxury. It's the platform from which reality can respond accurately. When you live from safety, you stop reacting and start resonating. Opportunities, conversations, timing, all begin to align because you're no longer sending mixed signals. You're broadcasting one clear tone. I am safe to receive what matches me. And here's the paradox. Coherence feels quiet. No fireworks, no rush. Just a steady hum of clarity that makes everything else obvious. That's the sound of alignment. But what if I told you coherence alone isn't enough? Because safety stabilizes your signal. Yes, but it's your identity that decides which station you're tuned to in the first place. Most people think manifestation is about maintaining a certain state. Joy, gratitude, love, the high vibes. But states are temporary. They rise and fall like waves. Identity, though, that's the ocean itself. And your frequency is only as stable as who you believe you are when the waves crash. When you try to stay positive, you're managing surface energy. When you shift identity, you become a new broadcaster. The field doesn't respond to your emotions in a single moment. It responds to the self you consistently embody beneath them. So let's strip it down. Who are you when nothing's working yet? Who are you when the text doesn't come, the plan falls through, the money's not there? If your sense of self collapses with circumstance, the old frequency still holds the dial. But when your self-concept remains intact, calm, curious, steady, you've already tuned into the new signal, even if the music hasn't started playing. There's a crucial distinction between a temporary emotional state and a core identity state. A temporary state says, I feel abundant. An identity state says, I am the person who abundance naturally flows to. One depends on external cues, the other broadcasts the cue. The most magnetic people you know, the ones who attract effortlessly, aren't manifesting through intensity. They're manifesting through identity coherence. Their thoughts, emotions, and body signals are consistent. They don't need to try to hold a vibration, because they are the vibration. It's like they've locked into a station and thrown away the dial. This is why inner work feels cyclical. You're not just changing how you feel, you're editing the template of who's feeling it. And every template shift rewrites your timeline. Here's something most people miss. Your subconscious identity carries emotional signatures from past frequencies, old versions of you that still expect life to respond in familiar ways. That's why you sometimes feel torn. Part of you knows you've evolved, while another part still reacts as if nothing has changed. That internal tug of war isn't sabotage, it's overlap. Two stations bleeding into one another until coherence wins. The moment you stop trying to maintain a high state and start embodying a new identity, your broadcast becomes stable. Reality stops glitching. Life stops testing, because the universe mirrors consistency, not effort. And that's where timelines begin to bend. When you stabilize your identity, you start selecting realities instead of chasing them. Every possible version of your life already exists, like stations on an infinite radio spectrum. You're not trying to create a new timeline. You're choosing which one you align with. And the tuner that makes that selection isn't effort. It's identity. Each identity emits its own vibrational signature, a composite frequency made of belief, body tone, emotional rhythm, and habitual perception. That signature determines what timelines become visible to you. You don't chase outcomes. You phase into realities that match who you currently believe you are. Here's how it looks in everyday life. Let's say you're under financial pressure, bills due, uncertainty swirling. The version of you who's anxious about survival tunes into the struggle frequency. That station broadcasts delay, scarcity, and short-term fixes. But the version of you who quietly knows, I always find a way, I am supported, vibrates on the stability frequency. Same situation, different broadcast, different timeline. One night, you sit with that tension instead of avoiding it. You breathe, regulate, and shift your attention from the external noise to the inner tone. And in that quiet, you sense a subtle shift, like the static clears for just a second. You feel an unfamiliar calm, a trust that doesn't make logical sense. The next morning, an opportunity appears, a small one, but perfectly timed. You didn't force it. You tuned into it. That's identity selecting a new station in real time. What's wild is how mechanical this process is. It's not luck or reward, it's resonance. Your consciousness collapses the timeline, whose frequency matches your felt sense of self. And because energy precedes form, life adjusts after you shift, not before. That's why waiting to see results before believing never works. Belief is the tuner. Identity is the ongoing broadcast that tells the universe what version of reality to mirror back. Here's the key insight. You don't move to new timelines by doing more. You phase shift by becoming coherent with the one that already exists. When you embody peace despite uncertainty, you've already entered a parallel where peace leads. The outer catches up once the signal locks. So the question isn't, how do I get there? It's, who's broadcasting right now? Because that frequency, subtle, quiet, and precise, is the only passport you'll ever need across realities. And once you understand that identity is programmable, you can begin rehearsing the signal of your next timeline on purpose, not by pretending, by training your field to remember who it's becoming. If identity is what selects the timeline, then practice is how you stabilize it. Because consciousness doesn't shift through theory, it shifts through rehearsal. Every new identity must be felt enough times for the nervous system to accept it as familiar. That's how the new frequency becomes home. Think of it like learning to play a song on a radio you once didn't know how to tune. At first, you catch the melody for a few seconds before static returns. Then, with repetition, the station becomes clearer. Until one day, it's crystal. The signal doesn't change because the universe finally allowed it. It changes because you stopped wobbling. Let's make that practical. Here are 3 tools to help your system rehearse your next frequency. Daily, gently, effectively. 1. Bridge statements. The subconscious resists big leaps. If you affirm something that feels unbelievable, it rejects the signal. Bridge statements create resonance between your current state and the new one. Instead of, I'm fully abundant, try, I'm learning what it feels like to trust abundance. Instead of, everything always works out, try, more and more. I notice things aligning. Each phrase is a gentle retuning, not a forced rewrite. 2. Somatic anchors. Every frequency has a body posture, a breath rhythm, a subtle hum. Find one that matches your desired identity. Maybe it's how you stand when you feel confident, or the warmth in your chest when you feel peace. Anchor it consciously. Breathe, feel, and memorize that pattern. Then recall it anytime your old signal tries to replay. You're training your cells to prefer the new song. 3. Frequency rehearsal drill. Choose a few minutes daily to be the future you. Not imagine, not force, but embody. Move how they'd move. Speak with their calm. Notice how reality subtly mirrors that shift. The more often you stabilize this tone, the faster your environment reorganizes to reflect it. These micro practices aren't about pretending. They're about synchronization, letting your nervous system, emotions, and attention play the same frequency long enough for reality to catch up. And when you begin doing this, something remarkable happens. Synchronicities multiply. Conversations feel lighter. Even your timing improves. Because the field has recognized a consistent broadcast, and coherence always attracts coherence. Have you noticed the moment you stopped gripping, what you wanted finally showed up? Tell me your story in the comments. It might unlock someone else's leap. But first, we need to face what happens when the signal splits, when urgency, fear, and control start to jam the broadcast. Because those hidden interferences are the real reason manifestation feels inconsistent. Even when you're rehearsing your new frequency, 3 invisible forces can scramble the signal. They're subtle, disguised as trying harder, but they create static every time. Urgency, split signals, and over-control. Let's decode them, because once you recognize these, your coherence becomes unshakable. Urgency is the most seductive trap. It feels productive. The rush, the chase, the thought that, if I just focus more, it'll happen faster. But urgency is actually a frequency of lack disguised as movement. When you broadcast impatience, you tell the field, it's not here yet. And the universe mirrors that message perfectly by keeping what you want one step away. The antidote isn't passivity, it's grounded trust. Before acting, breathe into your body. Ask, am I moving from creation or from fear? Action that arises from calm coherence multiplies results. Action that arises from panic multiplies static. Then there are split signals, moments when part of you wants something, but another part doesn't feel safe having it. You say you want love, but your body tenses at the thought of being seen. You affirm abundance, but an old memory whispers, money changes people. Your conscious mind presses the gas, while the subconscious holds the brake. The field can't translate mixed frequencies, so it loops confusion back. Integration means bringing every part of you into the same broadcast, not forcing alignment, inviting it. You do that by listening to the resistant voice, not fighting it. Ask it what it fears losing. Every inner conflict hides a protective mechanism that just needs reassurance. When you soothe it, coherence locks back in. And then comes over-control, the impulse to micromanage reality, to demand proof before peace. Control is the ego's attempt to stabilize uncertainty through tension. But tension is distortion. The more you grip, the more you distort the waveform of your signal. True influence happens when you relax into direction, not domination. You guide, not grasp. Think of it as holding the steering wheel lightly. You still navigate, but the car flows smoother. Once these 3 distortions lose their grip, something magical happens. Your field starts to hum again. You feel lighter not because the world changed, but because you stopped broadcasting interference. You're now a clear signal in a noisy field, and clarity magnetizes form faster than effort ever could. But coherence isn't just for meditation or manifestation rituals. The real mastery is bringing it into the mundane, the walk, the meal, the conversation. Because your ordinary moments are where frequency truly anchors. Real transformation doesn't happen on the meditation cushion. It happens in line at the grocery store, in the middle of a conversation, while washing dishes. Those are the places your new frequency gets tested and anchored. Every ordinary act is a broadcast point. Every reaction is a chance to tune back or hold steady. Because your field isn't something you turn on during rituals, it's always transmitting. And coherence, once embodied, becomes your default language with reality. When you walk, you're moving energy through your timeline. When you eat, you're teaching your cells what state of consciousness to metabolize. When you speak, you're programming the air with vibration. You're constantly teaching the field how to treat you, not through words, but through resonance. So, how do you integrate coherence into daily life? Start by practicing micro-presence. Each time you catch yourself rushing, pause for one slow breath. Feel your feet touch the ground. Notice one detail around you: light, texture, sound. That single moment of presence recalibrates your entire electromagnetic field. Then, treat every interaction as a tuning opportunity. Someone criticizes you? Instead of defending, sense the vibration underneath. Are they broadcasting fear, or are they mirroring your own unacknowledged tension? When you stay grounded instead of reactive, you become the stronger transmitter, and the interaction harmonizes. That's how coherence becomes contagious. Even technology can be part of your practice. Scrolling on your phone? Before you do, set an intention. I only engage with content that reflects my frequency of expansion. You'll be amazed how quickly your feed reshapes itself, because energy doesn't stop at your skin. Your signal extends into digital space too. When coherence becomes a lifestyle, your reality stabilizes. You stop chasing signs because you are the sign. You notice synchronicities not because they increase, but because your perception sharpens. The field was always responding. Now, you're finally attuned enough to see it. And as that awareness deepens, something extraordinary happens. The separation between me and life starts to blur. You stop managing manifestation and start living as manifestation. The inner and outer merge into one continuous frequency, a song the universe can't help but harmonize with. But here's the part most people never discover. The moment coherence stabilizes inside you, your field begins to expand beyond personal outcomes. You start influencing probabilities at larger scales, relationships, creativity, even collective energy. Because once your signal becomes stable, reality itself begins to reorganize around you. Once your frequency stabilizes, it doesn't just shape your personal experience. It starts reshaping the field around you. You become a transmitter that reorganizes energy wherever you go. Your vibration enters rooms before your words do. It influences how people feel, how conversations unfold, even how timing aligns. You don't control it, you conduct it. This is where manifestation turns into participation. Your reality stops being something you manage. It becomes something you play with. The more coherent your signal, the more gracefully your outer world rearranges itself to support the vibration you hold. Relationships deepen. Opportunities flow with less resistance. Your creative output feels guided rather than forced. It's not that you suddenly gain power. It's that you've become transparent to the intelligence that was always running the show. Let's ground this with a new scene. Imagine you're an artist, musician, or creator. For weeks you've felt blocked. Nothing flows. Every attempt feels mechanical. You think, maybe my inspiration's gone. But instead of pushing, you pause. You remember the signal drill. You breathe, soften your body, and tune back to coherence. You stop needing the song to come from you and allow it to come through you. And then, out of nowhere, the melody lands. Not because you forced genius, but because you matched its frequency. That's what happens when you expand your signal beyond the personal self. You start accessing timelines where inspiration, flow, and connection already exist. The field offers you its resources because you've become a clear instrument. You and creation merge. This expansion also touches relationships. You'll notice people responding to you differently, not because they changed, but because you did. You'll find more authentic conversations, effortless compassion, and magnetic synchronicities. Even those who used to drain your energy may either harmonize or quietly fade out. It's not rejection, it's resonance sorting itself out. And here's where frequency work gets profound. Your energy begins to ripple through collective fields. One coherent person can influence hundreds, not by convincing, but by vibrational contagion. When you hold peace in chaos, you broadcast stability into the environment. That's the real purpose of personal transformation, not just to manifest things, but to become a stabilizing force in a shifting world. You start realizing you were never manifesting stuff. You were training consciousness to express harmony through matter. And when you live that way, purpose isn't something you find. It's something you naturally transmit. But even this expansion is only part of the story, because the deeper truth waiting underneath all this tuning and identity work is almost paradoxical, that real power doesn't come from controlling the field, but from surrendering to it completely. There's a point in this journey where the mechanics dissolve, where you stop asking how to align and start realizing you were never separate from alignment at all. It's the moment your frequency stops being something you do and becomes something you are. And the gateway to that realization is surrender. Most people misunderstand surrender. They think it's giving up, stepping aside and letting chaos win. But in the quantum sense, surrender is coherence with intelligence itself. It's the highest form of participation, because when you stop trying to force the field, you finally allow it to reveal its pattern. Remember the radio metaphor? Up until now, you've been learning to tune, to find clarity, to hold the station. But what if, at some point, the music begins playing through you, and you realize you were never the tuner, never the radio, but the frequency itself expressing in form? That's surrender, dissolving the illusion of separation between the listener and the song. In that space, manifestation shifts from desire to dialogue. You no longer ask the universe for things. You listen to what it's asking through you. Purpose emerges not as a task, but as resonance. Life moves through you with a quiet authority that doesn't need proof. Think of how a musician becomes one with their instrument during performance. Their body disappears, their thoughts vanish, and only the music remains. That's the same state the universe enters when you surrender control. Your body becomes its instrument. Your frequency becomes its voice. This isn't about passivity, it's about precision. Because when you're no longer trying to bend reality, your energy becomes pure, undistorted, and infinitely creative. The field responds instantly because there's no friction left, no gap between intention and allowance. You are coherence embodied. And here's the paradox. The more you surrender, the more influence you gain, not because you manipulate, but because you're fully aligned with the organizing intelligence that shapes everything. You become a living bridge between consciousness and form. The observer and the observed collapse into one awareness. Every breath becomes a command, not through will, but through resonance. This is the essence of quantum manifestation. Not forcing, not striving, but harmonizing. You tune yourself to the frequency of truth, and life orchestrates around it effortlessly. You become the calm in the field that reorganizes everything it touches. And as this realization deepens, you stop needing to hold your vibration. You realize the field has been holding you all along. Because the final stage of frequency change isn't elevation, it's return to the intelligence that was always pulsing underneath your every heartbeat. If you've ever stood in front of a radio, turning the dial slowly until the static cleared, you already know how manifestation feels. That gentle click when the music locks in. That moment when the noise stops and the melody feels inevitable. That's what happens when your frequency finally settles into truth. The noise wasn't failure. It was feedback. Every bit of static was the field teaching you how to listen more deeply. And when you finally stopped twisting the dial in panic, you realized something incredible. The song had been there the entire time. That's how reality works. It's not about summoning something new. It's about relaxing into what's already playing underneath your interference. When your identity, your body, your emotions, and your awareness all hum the same note, life has no choice but to harmonize. Synchronicities become the rhythm section. Opportunities, the chorus. Peace, the bass line holding it all together. Maybe that's what awakening really is. Not a climb, but a tune. A remembering that you were always both the music and the musician. Every shift in frequency isn't about leaving your old self behind, but letting it dissolve into resonance, the kind that feels like home. So as you move through your day, walking, breathing, creating, loving, remember that every moment is a chance to refine the station, not by force, with frequency, not by chasing, by becoming. Because when you stop trying to get reality to respond and start realizing it's already responding to your current tone, the static turns into symphony. And that's the moment you'll know. The song you were waiting to hear was waiting for you to listen. If this landed for you, if you've started noticing the echoes of your own shift, the quiet proof that your frequency is changing, tell me below. Your story might be the exact melody someone else needs to find their station.